everybody, welcome and welcome back. It's me, Chameleon Girl Gina, and today my Sunday dinner is going to be meatloaf with mashed potatoes and gravy and French style green beans. So the first things first is the star of the show, which is going to be the meatloaf to me, but everything should be like pretty much a celebrity at least, because it's all going to be really good. Guys, first things first is your ground beef, or you can use ground turkey, ground chicken, ground pork, whatever your preference is, but for this recipe I'm liking to use ground beef. So anyway, I like to get myself a 5 pounds worth of ground beef, and to that, I will go ahead and add 2 small 6-ounce cans of tomato paste. To that, you're going to add a bunch of minced onion, because we need all the onion flavors that we can get, and these are dehydrated minced onions, or dry minced onions. But as they moisten, they will add the moisture to your meat so you don't have a dry meatloaf. The next thing we do is we'll add maybe about 2 cups of onion. And I would say, if you don't like onion, it's optional, but it's really, to this recipe, you really need that onion. Onion is a good water vegetable to make sure that this meatloaf is very, very, very moist. And then I'm going to this add about a teaspoon and a half of black pepper. To this, I'm going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder, not garlic salt at that point. Then to that, I'm going to add now some garlic salt. Now you may wonder, well, you just added garlic powder, why would you then need garlic salt? Because garlic salt and garlic powder taste completely different. They still have a garlic base, but they just taste totally different. We're going to use, though, about a tablespoon of yellow mustard. We're going to use a little bit of a lawry's, lower sodium or whatever. We'll use about 1.5 teaspoons of that. We're going to use a decent amount of onion powder, let's say 3/4 tablespoon. 3/4 tablespoon. We're going to use plenty of paprika. 1.5 tablespoons for color. We're going to use lots of parsley flakes. About 1 tablespoon. I'll probably add more than that, but yeah, we're going to do 1 tablespoon. Now to that, we're going to go ahead and add in some eggs and milk. Right now, we're just going to use a couple of eggs, just 2, to the 5 pounds of meat. This is where one of the mistakes can be made. If you use too much eggs, it's becoming like an eggy texture to this meatloaf. And we don't want that, because that's not the goal. You want it to be real meaty. We're going to do a little bit of whole milk. Very little. I'm going to tell you guys right now that we'll do about that is 3/4 cup. So there's where your mixture should be looking like. You don't want a whole bunch of milk in there, and maybe to some of you guys that may sound like a lot, but it's really not. The problem is, if you was to go into this and add in flour, that creates a pasty meatloaf, not a meaty meatloaf. So we're gonna do something that is very unconventional, which is just add any type of oatmeal that you have, not low packet with cinnamon raisin, obviously, but just, you know, the one in the regular container, like quick oats is fine. Or you can have the ones that you have to cook for a while, because this is going to be in the oven for about an hour and a half. So I want to take about a little over half cup. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do 1 cup of oats. And I always make my meatloaf like that, because it gives it more body to the meat. And you know, maybe you don't want to use oats, or even if you don't have any, then use some rice. Not minute rice though, not that type of rice. Use the type of rice that you have to cook and, you know, let it cook, and it makes for a good meatloaf too. But you do need a filler. So, but flour is just, to me, is no, that's not the way to go. And whenever I say stuff, guys, I want you guys to understand explicitly that I'm talking about, when I say to me, I'm talking about like what I have done myself. That, because I don't want it to seem like I'm criticizing the way somebody else cooks it or anything. But I think after you try this meatloaf recipe, I'm under the impression it may be your like favorite. Because you want this is going to be a real hearty meatloaf. And then you got all those onions to add moisture back. Then this is 80-20 so, ratio of meat. 80% ground beef, 20% fat. I don't use a recipe that calls for you know, very little fat to be in there. You need that fat. You need that fat to make the juices and the flavor. When you initially pick up your meatloaf, you just want to begin to squeeze it together. And it's probably going to fall apart a little bit, and that's okay, but it keeps it together as it cooks. Now at this point, you can lay it in your pan. If you want to make a smaller meatloaf, just cut your recipe in half. If you want to make a larger meatloaf, then of course you double your recipe. Okay, so we have our meatloaf and we have it ready to go in the oven. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and we'll just cut into the meatloaf. See, it's more meaty, it's not that pasty. Look, it's that medium, so then therefore it's going to taste more meaty. And I will just spoon on some of the gravy that we made. And the reason. So that is how your completed dish would then look. So here's our plate of food. We got seasoned green beans, of course meatloaf, the star, mashed potatoes and gravy, and a little dinner roll.